We are diving into the, let's call it, conflicted comeback of a true legend in the beat-em-up world, Double Dragon.
Right, we're talking Double Dragon Revive. This was the October 2025 release from Yuke's and Arc System Works. It was meant to be the modern take.
The definitive version, yeah. And yet, our mission today really is to figure out how it landed so squarely in that mixed or average zone. A Metascore of 60 on PC. That's not exactly a triumphant return.
And that 60 is fascinating, isn't it? Because it hides such a massive split.
Totally. You've got reviews calling it a real surprise, giving it scores like 80, and then boom, others just tear it down, unfulfilling 40 out of 100.
How does one game do that? It seems like a classic case of great ideas maybe fumbled in the execution.
Let's dig into that. The basic setup sounds pretty cool, actually.
Oh yeah, the premise is strong. It's set 15 years post-nuclear war. You've got this big metropolitan colony run by the Shadow Warriors gang.
And the Lee brothers, Billy and Jimmy, they're back. Masters of Sosatsuken, their martial art. And Mary and their friend, she's playable this time, too.
Right, and they get pulled into this whole thing because of some mysterious kidnappings. Standard Double Dragon fare, but with a sort of grittier, post-apocalyptic wrapper.
Okay, so the ambition was there, but let's hit the first big hurdle everyone seemed to trip over. The visuals. There was this huge disparity, wasn't there?
Huge. They promised, stylish, modern 3D graphics, but still paying homage to the arcade roots.
And did they deliver?
Well, half and half, maybe. The actual in-game graphics, the 3D models, the environments, sources consistently call them dull, generic, kind of plasticky almost.
Like lacking that punch you expect?
Yeah, one source even joked they look like assets from an old, forgotten sports game. Just not up to par for a modern revival.
But then the cutscenes were different. It sounds like maybe the art budget went there.
It really seems like it. Because the story cutscenes, the bits that link the levels, universally praised.
Really? What did they do right there?
They use these, gorgeous, illustrated stills, really high-concept artwork, almost like a moving comic book. And the voice acting was apparently pretty effective, too.
So you get this really vibrant, cool-looking story presentation.
And then you jump back into the game, and it's just kind of, visually, it's jarring. This clash between the static art and the in-game look.
And that clash wasn't just visual, right? The narrative itself, it seems like it created its own problems.
Yeah, they tried to go deeper, more mature. Post-apocalyptic setting, you've got the Shadow Warriors, Willie and Raymond, messing with black magic, even hints of a military-industrial complex plot.
Sounds ambitious. Maybe too ambitious.
That seems to be the consensus. Critics just found the writing.
Wow.
Lousy was the word used. Asinine. Downright boring.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So the story didn't land at all.
It seems it dragged on. Lots of cutscenes, and multiple reviewers mentioned just wanting to hit the skip button, which, isn't great if you're trying to invest players in a plot.
And honestly, when you think about Double Dragon, does it need a super serious, complex plot? I mean, remember Double Dragon Neon?
Exactly. Neon had Skullageddon, this, over-the-top, dimension-hopping skeleton knight guy. It was absurd and fun.
It knew what it was, pure chaotic energy.
Right. And Revive, trying to be serious about black magic and conspiracies, it just felt like it missed the point. It lacked that confident, fun absurdity that makes brawlers like this work. It felt labored.
Okay, so visuals were mixed, story was a miss, but let's get to the absolute core, the gameplay, the mechanics, because this seems to be where things really went wrong for a lot of people.
This is the big one.
Yeah.
The movement. This single choice seems to underpin so many of the complaints, especially those really low scores.
What did they do?
They went with full 8-directional movement for the 3D characters.
That?
They kept the gameplay on a traditional 2.5D plane, like the old games.
Okay, wait. For those listening who aren't deep into game mechanics, why is that mix such a problem?
Because precision is king in a beat-em-up, right? You need to line up your punches. With 8-way movement in what's essentially a 2D fighting space, your character control feels off. Clunky, sluggish, like walking through mud. Those are actual descriptions from sources. You're fighting the controls just to face the enemy properly. It feels imprecise. Wonky.
I can almost feel the frustration. That sounds like it would make combat a nightmare.
It has huge knock-on effects. The biggest one, inconsistent hit detection.
Meaning your punches just miss.
Yeah, enemies can sort of slip onto a slightly different axis just half a step away on that Z-plane. You can't really see your control properly. So you throw a punch straight ahead, looks like it should connect, but nope, whiff.
That sounds infuriating. Nothing worse than unreliable attacks in this kind of game.
Totally. And it affects defense, too. Blocking, dodging, described as finicky, like a coin flip. whether it would actually work when you needed it.
Okay, hold on. If the fundamental movement and hitting things is that broken, how did anyone give this game an 80? What were they seeing?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think those higher scores focus more on the ideas within the combat system, the strategic stuff we'll get to. Maybe they just clicked with the controls better or were more forgiving.
Or maybe they just really like the environmental kills. We'll get there. But first, that lack of impact you mentioned before?
Yeah, even when you did connect, attacks reportedly lack that satisfying oomph, that weight. Fights could feel monotonous, just kind of slapping enemies around without much feedback.
And this even messed up the big special moves, like the hyper blow. That's supposed to be the satisfying screen clearer.
It should be.
Yeah.
And the idea is good, you charge it up with combos and counters.
Yeah.
But the execution.
Hey, what happens?
The game apparently zooms in dramatically on like one enemy as you trigger it, big flourish, then the camera pulls back, and all the other enemies on screen have just sort of vanished.
Vanished, not like blown away or anything.
Nope, just gone. It felt really anticlimactic, half-baked was the term used. It's like they didn't finish the animation or something. Not the cathartic release you want from a super move.
Man, that combination sluggish movement, whiffing attacks, unsatisfying impacts, it really does sound like a core problem. But okay, let's try and see what those positive reviews saw. Let's talk strengths. There's some depth there, right?
Absolutely. Once you sort of wrestled the controls into submission, there was a strategic layer. It wasn't just mashing buttons.
What kind of strategy?
Well, you really needed to use timely dodges. And countering enemy attacks, particularly ones that glow blue, was crucial for building up that hyperblow meter. So there was a rhythm system to learn.
And the characters themselves, Billy and Jimmy, they have their classic Setsuken style. Does that translate into interesting moves?
It does, and the character variety was definitely a plus point. Billy and Jimmy are similar, sure, minor differences, but Marion, she's playable now, and she's apparently much quicker, more agile, has this cool rising knee special.
Oh, nice. And there was another character, too.
Yeah, Ranzo, a ninja. He uses tools, like explosive kunai. Offers a really different playstyle, more about utility and ranged options, perhaps. So the actual fighter design seemed pretty solid.
Okay, so unique characters, some strategic depth. What else worked? I remember seeing notes about environmental interaction.
Yes. This was widely praised. Seems like one of the best additions. You could use things in the levels, like knock enemies into walls.
Or off ledges.
Or into hazards, like dumpsters or specific map traps. Instant knockouts sometimes. Sources called it super fun, added this improvisational feel that the moment-to-moment punching maybe lacked. That's definitely something they should keep if they do another one.
Okay, so we've got these pockets of smart design, the strategy, the characters, the environmental stuff, but they're sort of buried under that frustrating movement system.
Pretty much. And that leads to the other big criticisms that dragged the experience down, like just the basic value.
Right, it's a short game.
Very short. Around 3 hours for one playthrough, apparently. Which, for a full-priced release, it made reviewers question if it was worth it, especially since the desire to replay it solo seemed low, given the control issues.
And did the levels themselves make you want to replay?
Not really, according to the sources.
All right.
8 levels, no branching paths. Described as pretty bland takes on the usual beat-em-up locations, subway, casino, factory, elevator. Felt a bit like checking boxes rather than inspired design.
And they threw in platforming, too. With the clunky movement, that sounds ill-advised.
Deeply ill-advised. It just amplified the frustration, trying to navigate conveyor belts, jump over gaps, avoid fire vents like in this infamous power plant section when your basic movement feels imprecise. That's just asking for trouble. It felt tacked on and clumsy.
Okay, so frustrating levels and then the bosses. I heard things got pretty rough later on.
Yeah, major difficulty spikes reported, especially near the end, like Chapter 7's boss. But not good difficult, apparently.
What do you mean not good difficult?
It wasn't about learning complex patterns. It was more about just being overwhelmed. Tons of extra enemies flooding the screen, bosses relying on really annoying gimmicks,
Like what?
enemies constantly throwing barrels from off-screen or spamming attacks from hazards on the walls. It just sounded tedious and cheap, rather than a satisfying challenge. Difficulty through irritation, basically.
Okay, this paints a pretty clear picture of why the reception was so mixed. But there's one more piece we have to talk about, and it's a big one. The legacy question.
Yes. This is maybe the most telling criticism. The reaction from people involved with the original Double Dragon.
It was pretty harsh, wasn't it?
Extremely. Koji Igarashi, an animator on the 1987 arcade original, he went public, said that basically no one from the original Technos team saw Revive as a real Double Dragon.
Wow. What terms did he use?
Called it soulless, cheap, said it looked like a test game. That's about as damning as it gets from someone involved in the series' birth.
That really highlights a fundamental disconnect, doesn't it? The new team tried to modernize with 3D and story, but the veterans felt they completely lost the feel, the arcade essence.
Exactly. And critics constantly brought up comparisons, which didn't help Revive.
Like what? Streets of Rage 4.
Streets of Rage 4 was the big one. It's seen as the gold standard for modern 2D brawlers. The controls, the impact, the look. When you put Revive's clunky movement next to that, it looks really bad.
And even compared to other recent Double Dragon games.
Yeah, people mentioned Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons, which had that cool roguelike structure, and even Double Dragon Neon with all its wild energy. Both were generally seen as better, more successful updates to the formula than Revive.
Okay, before we wrap up, we have to mention the one thing everyone seemed to agree on was actually good.
Ah, yes, the music. Finally, something unambiguously positive.
What was good about it?
The soundtrack apparently slapped. It had some decent new rock tracks, kind of riff-heavy stuff. But crucially, it also had really good remixes of classic Double Dragon themes.
So it nailed the nostalgia vibe, at least sonically.
Totally. Captured that high-energy arcade feel that the gameplay struggled with. The casino-level theme was mentioned as a standout. It's kind of a shame the game itself couldn't live up to its own soundtrack.
Okay, so let's try and summarize this for you, the listener. What does it all mean? Double Dragon Revive tried. It tried to blend modernization 3D, story, deeper mechanics with that old-school brawler feel.
And it had some genuinely good ideas in there. The
Yeah.
strategic combat layer, the unique character movesets, those fun environmental takedowns. There was potential.
It was all fundamentally undermined by the controls. That decision to use 8-way movement in a 2.5D space just created too many problems. Clunky feel, missed hits, frustrating platforming.
Yeah, the consensus seems to be it ended up feeling like a hollow facsimile. It had the Double Dragon name, but not the core feel. Respecting the legacy in name, maybe, but not in the actual playing experience.
Which brings us to our final thought. Considering how negative the original creators were, and how Revive stacks up against polished 2D games like Streets of Rage 4.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Does the struggle of Double Dragon Revive kind of prove a point? That maybe some classic 2D genres built entirely on muscle memory, precise timing, perfect hitboxes, just don't translate well to 3D engines.
Like, trying to modernize them by adding that third dimension actually breaks the very thing that made them special in the first place.
Exactly. Is that instant feedback, that perfect 2D precision, something that gets lost? Is the future of the classic beat 'em up maybe just permanently locked in 2D if you want to truly capture that original magic? Something to think about.